Okay, so the basic issue is that earnings have been pretty good, right? Given the economic situation that we're in, where we've got pretty low growth. So we had like a 2% print today for real GDP. And if you look into that number, you can divide GDP into two components. One component is like real sales. The other component is like inventory. And inventory was basically 1.4%, and the growth in real sales, 0.6%, which is dangerously close to zero. And basically, I think that the inventory story is going to play out. And firms have restocked their inventories, but they're not going to continue to restock if there isn't the demand for the product. So the real sales, 0.6% at an annual rate. So it's one thing to have a buildup in inventory, another thing to sell the inventory. So I think that we have seen some demand over the past year. We've seen drastic cost cuts. So if you actually look at the earnings, it's not because, with some exceptions like Apple, that the revenues are up dramatically. It's more that they've been cost cutting. And that cannot be maintained forever. So in the last CFO survey, we specifically asked this question. So if things continue in terms of the macroeconomic situation to chug along at basically where we are, 2% real growth, can you maintain these level of profits? And the answer was no. So they actually need some growth to maintain those profits. Now, the question has to do with commodity costs. And it's kind of interesting, of all the things to invest in these days, stock market's pretty questionable. And I have a hard time thinking about a long position in bonds when the 10-year rate is like 2.6%. Like, the rate might go down somewhat, but it could go up dramatically. So being long bonds is pretty problematic. Commodities, on the other hand, have done really well. And given kind of the projected growth in emerging market demand, it seems like a pretty good sector to be in. So commodity costs will probably go up. And that's going to impinge upon profitability. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Will firms be able to pass that on to consumers? Probably not. So given that we're not going to see the growth, at least in my projections, for next year, the profitability will go down. Okay, and that's not very good news. And do I think the QE2 is going to save everything? No, but that's probably another question. Mm-hmm.